Okay, we're gonna skip to the ending here and see how the symphony wraps up. To the coda, which is an extension of the ending, and hearing some recaps of the previous themes, and now finally the assertion of C major over and over again. So there you have it. Because of all the tension that was built up through this very long piece, the resolution needs to be emotionally satisfying to match and overcome all that tension that's built up. So you get that repeated assertion of C major, C major, C major, C major at the end of that to create a sense of resolution on the large scale of the whole big piece. All right, now I want to switch to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The Ninth Symphony was very. It was his last. It was his last symphony, and it incorporated some new instruments and broke even more rules, so to speak. So, because what you have essentially in throughout the course of Beethoven's life, we've got essentially like three periods, three time periods where he was, remember, bridging the classical period into the Romantic period. So the three periods, general periods that we consider in Beethoven's life, the first period was primarily classical, firmly rooted in the classical traditions. And this was a great time for Beethoven. He was young, full of energy, full of great ideas, and excited about life. He did have a very troubled childhood, didn't have great parents. His father, who died early in his life, was kind of a musical hack, essentially, and wanted to trot Beethoven around Europe and get rich off of his talents, and but basically told Beethoven and everybody, "Oh, Beethoven, I taught him everything he knows," but he was really very limited as a musician. And finally, Beethoven, once he got old enough, said, "Enough is enough. I'm going out on my own." And off he went and moved to Vienna. He was about 22 at this time, and he went and studied with some of the great composers there. Haydn in particular. He was like the king of classical music at the time, and got to study with him. And he lived off of teaching wealthy people, royalty, music lessons, piano lessons, things like that, and lived off of their gifts as well. But he was the talk of the town. Everyone was so fired up over all the great things this new musician was doing. And so he was the toast of the town. Unfortunately, he started to lose his hearing. And in his 20s, he began losing his hearing. And this was something that he went to great measures to hide, to not let all these people that were giving him this great career, he could not let them know that he was going deaf. So he started being sort of not so polite and not so friendly anymore, and not engaging with people. So he would actively involve avoiding folks, avoiding friends, avoiding people that wanted him to come and visit, wanted him to come and play for them and that sort of thing. Because he just couldn't let that secret out. He figured he would just be ruined. Okay, and so in the middle period of Beethoven's composing, went from all this optimism and excitement about what's coming up to now he's losing his hearing, but he is pushing his craft, he's pushing his compositional skills, and he was an incredible pianist as well. He was really pushing the limits from the classical period and dragging us all into the Romantic period. So the late period of Beethoven was when he was completely deaf at this point, and this is when he composed that Ninth Symphony that I want to talk to you about. Well, as Beethoven got more and more deaf, he got more and more surly, and he, got more and more surly about not finding a wife. Fell in love many times, usually with people that were, wealthy, wealthy young ladies who were taking piano lessons from them, because that's what proper young ladies did. No one ever returned those feelings. So he got kind of surlier and crabbier and meaner as the years went on. And oddly enough, one of the things he did to sort of calm himself down was go and soak in the baths, to go to essentially a sauna. Well, these saunas, these spas, they used lead bathtubs. So every time he went to these to calm his nerves, he was getting an intake of lead into his body, which makes a person go mad and eventually kills them. And sure enough, when some of Beethoven's hair was posthumously studied, and it showed incredible high levels of lead in his body, which makes you go mad and kills you. So the very thing he was doing to try to get himself to be more amicable and more social and more calm and happy was the very thing that was making it worse and worse and worse, and then killed him. And then by the time we get to this famous Ninth Symphony that we'll listen to here on in the next part, he was completely deaf. So I want you to picture or imagine yourself either at that concert or in that symphony orchestra. Here's Beethoven, who can't hear a thing. He's conducting. And so he stands up in front of the orchestra, and he is playing the perfect version of this symphony in his head and conducting to that, while the orchestra is desperately trying to hang on for their dear lives, following this perfect version going in Beethoven's head. So, oh my gosh, what a difficult feat that would be, because he couldn't hear them. He was playing, conducting what he heard in his head, and they had to live up to that perfect version in his head somehow and just hang on for dear life. All right, so that's gonna wrap up part 2 here, and we will be back with part 3 to listen to the symphony itself, and I want to show you some of the interesting new instruments that he brought into the orchestra just for this symphony. All right, thanks.